Got your back.
Okay, held my breath that whole time. And then I exhaled.
Oh, you're gonna pass
Okay.
out.
No. It's okay. You can hold your breath a little bit. So let me quickly explain the process, then I'm going to call for volunteers, okay? And so here's how this works. I will be, when you start to talk, so when it's your turn to talk, and it's all volunteer, my multitasking is
One right here.
rusty. Okay. Okay, so let me demonstrate something for you. When it's your turn to talk, so you can take all the time you need to make sure you're ready. So don't be rushed when it's your turn, but just make sure you position the camera so that if I'm speaking, you can see all my mannerisms, right? Okay, so just like waist up, from the waist up. So take your time to do that. And then a lot of students will ask for feedback, like, hey, how is this? Is this okay? So you can do that. And I know for sure I'll give a thumbs up. I'm gonna keep myself unmuted as much as I can, while the rest of you stay muted when you're not speaking, unless you want to speak. Or comment after a speaker, then you can unmute. But I'll try to keep myself unmuted. I've got my dog, my beast. She's in her crate, so be quiet over here. All right, so here's what we do. We ask for volunteers. When you are situated, you're standing the way you're supposed to stand, and you're ready to go. As soon as you start talking, I hit my timer. Okay? And then what happens is when you get to 3 minutes, you'll see this sign, 3 minutes. And I'll hold it up until I'm sure you looked up, okay? So, I mean, I can't guarantee you saw it, but I'm gonna be making sure that you looked up before I put it down. At 4 minutes, you'll see this sign, okay? So remember, it's between 3 and 5 minutes. And then at 5, you'll see this. You have a 30-second wiggle room of window on that tail end. So you will not, nobody saw this morning, nobody. Everyone was in their time, okay? But if I have to do this, that means that you have to stop your speech, okay? But hopefully not. It's just that your stories are so interesting sometimes that they're long, you know? So, do you have any other questions before I ask for a volunteer? Okay. So, with that in mind, who is volunteering first?
Esteban.
I'm ready for you. So adjust yourself so that we can see half of you and get your speaking notes, whatever that looks like. And then when you start talking, I will hit start on my timer.
All right, so like, can you see me or no?
Well, right now I can only see like this much of you, so you have to stand up and step back.
Wait,
He's frozen.
What?
I'm pretty sure he's frozen.
Yeah, you're frozen, Esteban. Oh, that's.
I don't know what to do.
That happened this morning too, and what they did was they logged out and logged back in.
Okay.
I'm
well, then
sorry.
somebody else can go. I don't know if you guys want to wait for me.
Okay, so you could be
It was
second.
working back just now.
What?
It was working when he turned his camera back on.
Okay, Esteban.
Yeah.
No, I think it's frozen again.
All right. I'm gonna. I guess I'll call right back.
No problem. No problem.
All right.
Okay. Well, I can't take another speaker anyways right now because it's going to be too disruptive with him. So he should be right back in. And I'm watching for him right now. Just for your information, the approximate total time it took for the other half of the class to do speech delivery was about 90 minutes. Esteban's coming back in right now. Okay, you look live.
Okay.
Okay, so remember, oh, okay.
Do you want me closer?
No, I want you to angle your camera, if you can, down so that we can see more of you.
Like, it's kind of hard because I got an iPad.
Okay. You know what? That's good. Esteban, that's good. You're good. So when you start,
Okay.
I will start the timer.
Okay. Okay. All right. Imagine you're having a great day fishing outside of the Golden Gate Bridge, and on your way back to the dock, things start to get very intimidating. Imagine being in a situation with your heart beating out of your chest and your stomach hitting the deck of the boat. This is a story I'm telling because it will be with me forever. This is a great fishing story that I will be able to tell for years to come, and also to be happy to be alive today. Many life lessons were taught to me this day, as being cautious. We got plenty of fish and had a great day out on the water, but when returning back, things started to get a little hairy and were a bit scary for a moment. Tuesday, June 26, 2018, was the day for me that this happened. It started at 4 in the morning, leaving my house in Pinole and heading to the Berkeley Marina to board a charter boat to go salmon fishing. I, along with my uncle and his friends, were ready for this day and planning it for months in advance. This was my birthday gift from my uncle, and it was going to be one that I'll never forget. It was a nice, calm ride in the dark on the water on the way out. As we approached the Golden Gate Bridge, the sun started to rise and made for beautiful pictures and beautiful scenery. The day was off to a great start, and we were headed to catch fish and have a great time. While out there, all 8 of us caught 2 salmon each, and it was a great day. While we were out there fishing, we decided to all make a bet and put $20 in the pot. The person with the biggest fish would win the money at the end of the day. After a beautiful day out on the water, full of joy and laughter, it was finally time for us to head back. We were all able to catch our fish, and we had limits. Captain Mike Fontanella said it was time for us to head back to dock. This was when the nightmare started for me. On the way back to the dock, I was sitting in the cab of the boat with my back facing towards where we were going. Across from me were my uncle's 2 buddies, and the rest of them sat outside. On the way back, the water was a bit choppy and very rough. Everything was going fine until we started to approach the Golden Gate Bridge. We had to pass through the potato patch. This is where the water coming from the ocean meets the water going out from the bay. With the different water temperatures from the bay and the ocean, it causes for a sort of tornado in the water. The potato patch is where the water spins and the current is very fast. We were approaching, and as we were about to go under, something felt like it just came from under the boat and grabbed it. The boat went on its side, and I was sitting in the cab. The water was touching the window. Captain Mike fell on me from his seat and was on top of me. We all fell to the left side of the boat, almost falling out. It was a very scary situation. My heart immediately started beating. My stomach felt like it hit the boat. Captain Mike apologized to us and told us that he was very sorry and that he was not expecting that to happen. We kept going, and it happened once again. This time, the side of the boat did not touch the water, but at this point, I was very sick to my stomach. In my head, I just kept thinking of all the bad things that could happen. At this point, I could not wait to get back to the dock so that I could get off the boat. Once we were approaching the marina, the water was pretty calm. As we were approaching the marina, I decided to walk out on the back deck of the boat. I felt like I just needed some air. My uncle looked at me and asked me, "Do you want to really win this bet?" Of course, I responded yes. My uncle knew that my fish and his buddy's fish were going to be close in weight. So as his buddy was not looking, we took my fish out of the cooler and started putting ice in the fish. When we got back to dock, we all weighed our fish, and my fish was the heaviest, weighing it at 25 pounds. Thanks to my uncle, I won the bet and had a wonderful day fishing. I was able to walk away from this fishing trip with a story to tell and some money in my pocket.
Okay, let me stop the timer. All right, yay, good job. And you guys also know you have responses down here on the bottom, reactions. So like, there you go, Esteban. Okay, so
Shout out my boy Jaime.
you can
my
clap
boy.
because we can see you clapping, but you can also use these reactions.
Thank you guys, whoever put the stuff up. I can't see everybody.
Okay. Let me make sure I wrote down everything I wanted to write. Okay. Thank you, Esteban. Do I have somebody who wants to be next?
I'll go next.
Okay. Okay, Brandon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you step back a tiny bit more? Perfect. Perfect. Okay, whenever you're ready, take your time. When you
Okay.
start, I'll start the timer.
So my story is another fishing story like Esteban.
Cool.
As a fisherman, I've always wanted to leave the country to explore new fishing areas and catch tons of different fish. The first opportunity to do so was a vacation to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, one of the best saltwater fishing areas in the world. During my stay there, I caught many beautiful fish, but one day that seemed to be the longest day on the water ended with the most exciting catch and the biggest fish I've ever caught. Arriving in Cabo, I immediately felt the hot, humid air of the desert, and within minutes was exhausted by the hot sun and needed to find a drink. We arrived at the hotel and unpacked all our fishing gear. Once the sun went down, we went to the harbor to book a fishing guide. Since our guide was not available for another few days, we decided that we would fish off the beach in the meantime. Every morning, my dad and I would be on the beach with our poles, even before the sun was out. It was amazing. The water housed so many animals. We watched stingrays jumping out of the water and doing flips as if they were at a marine world show, and sharks frenzy as they preyed on smaller fish. It was the best time I've ever had fishing because every time I hooked something, I didn't know what it was going to be. We caught sierras, jacks, needlefish, and more. After fishing on the beach for a few days, it was finally time to go out on the boat. Getting up at 4 a.m., I was so excited to get in the boat. When we arrived, there was something wrong with the boat that we had booked, but luckily another captain invited us to take us instead. So after switching boats, we were finally out on the water. Eager to get my bait in the water, we baited our hooks and started trolling. Waiting for the first bite to come felt like an eternity. Before I knew it, it had already been 4 hours without a single bite. The fumes from the boat's engine started to make me feel sick, and as I hung myself over the railing of the boat, I watched as flying fish flew out of the water and a large black shadow of a whale shark passed just underneath us. It was an amazing sight that gave me energy and made me even more excited to catch a fish. Now we have been on the boat for 7 hours and we were exhausted and ready to go home. But our captain yelled out in excitement, "Marlin!" The deckhand told me to throw my line in the water immediately to get ready. In seconds, it felt as if I had hooked a car. The strength of the fish had was incredible. Fighting the fish for about 20 minutes, I got blisters on my hands and fingers and had to give the rod to my dad. And when he got blisters of his own, it was my turn to get it. The marlin jumped out of the water, shaking its head back and forth several times until we got it next to the boat. We gaffed it into the boat and cheered for finally catching a fish. It was the last day of the trip, and it was by far the most memorable. What seemed to be the worst day to go fishing ended with catching the biggest fish of my life, a 220-pound blue marlin. It was a truly incredible experience to be able to catch a fish like that and to be able to see all the beautiful animals during the trip. Cabo was a paradise that we visited many times after this, each time we got our poles.
Okay, thank you.
Any other reactions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Big fish. Oh my God. I can't imagine. How long did you wrestle with it?
It seemed like hours, but it was probably 30 minutes or so, a little more.
Because I know it can go on a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, let me make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, I got it. Okay. Anyone else have a fish story? No? Okay. Who would like to be next?
I can go.
Okay. Micah, before you go, this I think students, you might find this helpful. You've heard two speeches now. They both obviously were in their time. So to give you a sense of length of time, Esteban was 4 minutes and 47 seconds. Okay. And Brandon was 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Okay. So just to kind of give you an idea. And I am ready when you are, Micah.
Is that okay?
That's perfect, Micah.
Okay. I used to tell people that I fought a bear. Going into the 4th grade, I had 8 stitches on my face, almost half an inch below my left eye. Now in hindsight, merely 8 stitches would not be the outcome of fighting an 8-foot, 600-pound animal, but my friends were too invested about the fact that I had a scar. So what actually happened? The real story that I will be telling you is how I got such a scar from an amusement park, where laughter and thrill suddenly becomes bloody. It's not as adventurous as you might think, but to me, it felt more terrifying than riding a roller coaster. One summer morning, my older cousin wakes me up saying that she bought Six Flags Discovery Kingdom tickets for me and my siblings. After hearing the exciting news, I rush out of bed and start to get ready for a fun day ahead of me. I put on my favorite rainbow jacket and my favorite pair of sunglasses and head out the door with my family. I was greeted with the sun's warm, bright rays and a slight breeze that made the weather perfect for going to the park. On the way there, I could not wait to see the dolphins doing intense water gymnastics and the penguins waddling around with their friends. My cousin, however, insists that we should ride our favorite roller coasters first before we walk around the park so that we didn't have to wait in the long lines. So we all agree to 5 roller coasters before going anywhere else, but I still had my mind on those animals. Upon arrival, my siblings and I run towards each ride, having the time of our lives. Some rides were short and geared towards smaller children like I was, and others had wide loops that made my stomach have butterflies. We finally reached the 5th ride, which was called the Sky Screamer. It is a 242-foot tall tower that has swings attached only by chains, which rotates quickly around the air. My neck hurt just by looking up at the whole ride. So I grabbed my brother and we raced towards the line. At the front of the line, we wait behind a gate that is almost as tall as me. I watch the people riding before us, their screams filling me with more and more excitement. As soon as the swings came back towards the ground, I leaned on the gate so that I could be the first kid to grab a seat. Suddenly, the gate swiftly opens, which causes me to step back in surprise. My brother runs past me and I try to chase after him, but bam, the corner of the gate hits my face. Before I know it, my sunglasses shatter onto the ground and I see drips of blood on my rainbow sweater. I stare at the gate in shock, not realizing that it had somehow swung back to hit me after my brother pushed through it. In the background, I can hear him nervously calling for my cousin outside the ride, while I numbly felt the large gash under my eye. It then becomes a blur. A woman behind us uses her son's jacket to hold against the bleeding gash. My cousin anxiously carries me out of the park and places me in a random truck. My mother somehow appears and tells me that I'm going to be okay. I just wanted to see the penguins. My mother rushes me inside the emergency room, and a doctor attends us right away. After some poking and prodding, he informs me that I needed stitches for my large cuts to heal. He turns to my mother and says that I was lucky that the gate was not half an inch taller, or else my left eye would have been in deep trouble. Soon after, a nurse injects anesthesia into my cheek and the doctor starts to sew me up. Feeling lethargic, my mother and I head home. I felt disappointed that I couldn't enjoy a whole day in the park, but one thing I knew for sure was that I was never going back to the Sky Screamer. So did I really fight a bear? No. As lame as it sounds, all I did was run into a gate. Was I proud of how it happened? No. For many weeks, I get embarrassed explaining my own clumsiness to my friends and family. Obviously, this was my attempt at making a key event in my life sound a little more interesting than it actually was, but it's not any less special to me. No matter how I got it, this scar was the result of an experience that made my childhood unique. Although it wasn't like winning against the bear, I definitely have a fun story to tell my children in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Gotta get my reaction in there. Thank you. Micah, that was really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I rode that ride. My daughter talked me into it and seemed to look tame. But when I got on it, oh my God. And I love roller coasters. Love them. But that was, I was nauseous the whole rest of the day. Okay. I'm ready for another volunteer.
I'll go ahead and go.
Okay, Coral.
Okay. Let me turn this light because it's there. Got a little better.
Yes, Coral, that's good.
Okay. June 7th, 2014 is a day I'll never forget. My two kids, ages 4 and 9.
Uh-oh.
My boys were ready to look for shells, build sandcastles, and have fun. We woke up early, packed the car with our blankets, sand toys, swimsuits, and a picnic and pulled out of the driveway. About an hour later, we pulled into Dillon Beach to meet some friends who were camping for the weekend. There was an unoccupied campsite right next to theirs where I was asked to pull my car into. I got the kids out of the car and we waited for the men of the group to return with the crabs that they spent all morning catching. About an hour after arriving to the campsite, my wonderful morning of kids laughing, running around, playing soccer, and enjoying each other's company was instantly changed to horror with screaming and crying. Everyone in the group was gathering their towels and toys, and I decided it was time to put my bags and ice chest into the trunk of my car. As I stand at the back of my black Honda, I see my 4-year-old kicking a soccer ball back and forth to another little girl. My car was parked sideways about 15 feet away from the fire pit that looked like the inside of an old rusty black washing machine. It stood about 1.5 to 2 feet above the ground, and it was meant for large pieces of wood. I put the ice chest into the trunk, looked to my right, and see my son running backwards to try and kick the ball. But as he ran, he bumped into the fire pit and landed with his butt inside of it, feet at the top of the metal frame, and an instant scream from the bottom of his lungs. The top of the fire pit was cold to the touch and did not look like it had been used in quite some time. There were no coals visible to the eye, no heat coming from the pit, and I couldn't understand why he was screaming so loudly. My girlfriend was standing just 5 feet away. She rushed over, bent down, and pulled him out. As I run towards them, I can see that his swim trunks are burned so badly they were stuck to his lower back. From the left side of his back to the right side, all I could see was black charred edges of where his shorts were burned to the skin, and the palm of his left hand was bright red, also charred edges. The bottom of the fire pit had hot coals, but they were covered by all the ash, which made it look as though it was not dangerous. I grabbed my son, held him tight, and tried to calm him down as my friend poured cool water over his back and hand. I remembered that roughly 5 miles down the back seat of my car with my son on my lap and my girlfriend drove us down. It felt like the longest car ride. We pulled into the parking lot and was greeted by a tall, average-sized fireman. I explained what happened, and instantly he started to take care of my son. He put a wet, gel-like white pad over the burn to help take the heat out of it, checked his vitals, and put both of us into the ambulance. I lay on the gurney with my son laying extremely scared. The fireman wrapped his little burned hand after applying some medicine, and off to Petaluma Valley Hospital we go. It is now about an hour after the incident, and I see my son smile for the first time. We lay and wait for the doctors to come into the room and assess the burns. We are told that certain areas of his back have third-degree burns, and he needs to see his pediatrician right away. I am given some bandages, sulfasalazine, burn cream, and instructions on how to change the dressings when we get home. I think to myself, how am I going to take these ones off and change them? I cannot be the one to do this. Tears filled my eyes as I imagine how much pain and discomfort he will be in over the next couple of weeks. My girlfriend is waiting for us as my son is discharged from the emergency room. Once discharged, we head back to the campsite to pick up my 9-year-old, and we're given 2 live crabs to take home for dinner. It was almost dark by the time we pulled back into the driveway of our home, and my son says, "Mommy, we didn't even get to play on the beach. I didn't get to build a sandcastle or find seashells." I smiled and assured him that we will go back to the beach another time. Thank you.
All right, good job.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm ready for another speaker.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, or you want to go? It doesn't matter.
Oh, did someone else volunteer? I missed it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Rochelle. She volunteered as well. You can go if you want.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Just give me a minute to set up.
Okay, Rochelle.
How was that? Should I go?
No, that's actually perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. How would you describe a loyal friend? Supportive, trustworthy? How about furry? The day I got my first dog was the day that changed my life for the better, as she helped me find hope during my rough transition into the college student life. Although times were not the best, my decision of getting a dog was definitely the solution to my problems, as she made me feel like myself again. A few weeks after graduating high school, I moved out of the comfort of my parents' house and into a small but expensive 1-bedroom apartment here in Napa with my boyfriend. At first, things seemed to be going pretty smooth. However, this wave of happiness did not last forever. Moving out so soon had a bigger impact on me than I anticipated. I missed my family, my friends, and even my cats. I would be in school all day during the week, and since my boyfriend would work the night shift, I would often be alone in our new apartment. On top of that, my ambition for pursuing a college education, as well as having my own place, began to clash with each other, as I struggled to pay for my apartment being a full-time student. My mental and physical health began to spiral, as I felt every new day was more stressful than the last. As time passed, my stress escalated. I was mentally drained and had reached a very low time in my life. One August night, however, I thought about getting myself a companion, something that could keep me company, something I could care for and bond with. Initially, I considered getting a cat, but since I'd never had a dog before, I decided it's time I get my first one. I started with a quick Google search that led me to the Adopt a Pet website. I scrolled for probably an hour or so, but none of those pups really stood out to me. I eventually proposed this idea to my boyfriend, who disagreed because of money issues as well as my lack of experience. I agreed on what he had to say. I was struggling with money and had never had to care for a dog before, so what makes me think I can handle one now? I gave up after evaluating my current situation. Days later, the urge came back. I was in dire need of some motivation to get back on my feet, and a dog in my eyes was the answer to that. I spent more time digging on the web, and to my surprise, I finally found her on page 12 on Adopt a Pet. "Hi, my name is Daisy," said the title. I continued to read. Daisy is a Jack Russell Chihuahua mix who is house trained and loves cats. We are looking to rehome her. Please fill out this application if you are interested. I felt an instant connection and without hesitation emailed her owner, who eventually agreed on meeting with me. I later broke the news to my boyfriend, who was not as enthusiastic as I was, but agreed on meeting with Daisy and her owner. We met at Dan Foley Park. Daisy seemed to be taking a liking to us, the owner remarked. They mentioned to us that she was a rescue and her socialization skills were very poor because of this. Although it was not easy, we decided to take her home that day. It was hard because she did not want to leave her owners. And when we finally got in the car, she would not get out. It then took us hours to finally get her in the house, where she would hide in the corner for 3 days straight without eating or drinking anything. It was on that third day that she finally started acting normal again. We wanted to rename her, so we decided on the name Peaches. It has been 10 months since we adopted her, and we have practically grown inseparable ever since. At the end of the day, Peaches makes me feel complete. I almost lost myself, my purpose, until I found her. I understand her struggle and suffering, and I feel like we have built an unbreakable bond because of that. Her presence has shown me a different perspective in this life. She has taught me through her actions to adapt, to understand, to be patient, and to love unconditionally. Thanks.
Okay, that was awesome. Very nice job. Thank you, Rochelle. So that was, okay, writing your time down. Okay. Hannah, would you like to be next?
Why not? Sure.
Okay.
Is this good? Yeah.
Yep, perfect.
Cool. Oh. We were off on our next adventure, cruising along the tropical island of Sri Lanka without a care in the world. Could you honestly tell me you wouldn't want this experience? Well, you may change your mind after you finish hearing the rest of what startling events took place that day. One typical day in paradise would soon become the most memorable moment of my life. On a 9-hour drive to yet another beach resort, the wildlife in the area had a plan of their own. What I'm about to tell you is a true story about how quickly a typical day in Sri Lanka can go from the most peaceful and carefree moment to intense panic and yet still become the most amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience. I can admit, my desire to see elephants had been fulfilled, and you will soon know why. Bags packed, seatbelts on, and eager for our relaxing weekend, the group and I were ready to hit the road. Considering we were driving across the entire island, we were bound to come across some wildlife. At least this was my hope. A couple of hours into our trip, and my optimism was dwindling. As we came across the first town we had seen in a while, I found myself re-engaging with my surroundings. I turned to look out the window to my right, and there it was. I had seen elephants in zoos before, but nothing could have prepared me for this moment. I can't even begin to explain the rush of adrenaline I got when I first laid eyes on the creature. Unlike at a zoo, there was no fence in between us, providing a sense of safety. The elephant walked down the road side by side with our car as the local people continued about what they were doing, seemingly not fazed at all. At this point, my hope of seeing wildlife had been fulfilled, but our journey was not quite over. As we were nearing the resort, I could tell we were all feeling exhausted. I was enjoying the relaxing drive. My eyes were closed and I was listening to music, when all of a sudden the driver slammed on the brakes, sending everyone flying forward. As I opened my eyes, I quickly realized why the abrupt stop was necessary. In front of us stood 7 elephants. Yes, you heard me correctly. There were 7. They stood in the middle of the road and seemed just as surprised to see us as we were to see them. Even the driver, who was a family friend and a Sri Lankan native, seemed to be in complete shock. Unsure of how they were going to react, it was best if we stayed put until they were gone. As we got a closer look, we realized that the 4 adults were protecting the 3 babies underneath them. It seemed like the parents were going to charge at our car in order to protect their calves, but luckily this wasn't the case. It all happened so fast that sadly the only pictures we have of this encounter aren't the best quality. I am sure it does not come as a surprise that this was the most amazing yet frightful experience that I have ever had. Considering our luck, you're probably wondering if we ever made it to the resort. Well, I can assure you, we did.
All right. Nice job. Okay. Who would like to be the next speaker?
I'll go.
Okay.
Okay. Set. Got a bunch of boxes stacked them up. Is that fine? Does that work? Do I need to?
No, that's just right.
Okay, cool. Okay. This fine?
Perfect.
Okay. Destiny. The word itself sounds cliche, right? Like watching a rom-com from the 90s or my mother's infinite amount of soap operas with a plot line so predictable, I'd watch in confusion as to why she was surprised that the lead was having an affair with the secretary again. To me, the word always seemed to be used by a lazy screenwriter who had dug themselves a plot hole so deep that no amount of rewrites or time travel could salvage their work. I always had a negative connotation to the word. I should have known that, ironically, the word would come to define my character, my friendships, and my all-around growth as a person. In late 2014, my friends were talking about a brand new game coming out. They were posting about how good it was, so I asked them what the name was. They said it was called Destiny, because of course it was. I eventually bought it, gave up on it, and didn't come back to it until January 2015. In the game, there are many challenges to complete, but none are harder than the raids. This is a 6-player activity that pits you against the hardest content the game has to offer and rewards those willing to push through. The raids involve constant communication, critical thinking, and problem solving with seconds on the clock. These activities also require plenty of time and patience. After I was introduced to them, the rush of tackling something so difficult and completing after trial and error felt so rewarding. The hardest part was finding people to do them with. Most groups would not take you under their wing, especially if you didn't know what to do. They expected you to know what to do with every encounter, and if you failed or had to have something repeated, they would kick you. The activity was so enticing and the reward incentive so desirable, I felt it was a shame for someone to miss out because others didn't care to help. I began doing raids and only inviting people to join if they had never played or completed one. Doing this taught me how to control my temper. Some people had a more difficult time than others understanding the mechanics or their role, needed a bit more time to acclimate. Destiny taught me the discipline to not resort to the short temper that I gained from my father, to realize that by being patient and understanding just because you know what to do doesn't mean others do. You realize that we all started the same and you should lead by example, to not yell, call someone names, or remove them because they weren't able to grasp something immediately. Destiny also taught me how to work well with others. Here, you need to communicate and help your teammates. I come to treasure the moments when a difficult obstacle comes our way and we work as a unit to persevere. The game makes you talk, makes you think about the problem at hand and find the solution quick. It rewards you for synchronizing with your team, learning from failures, and doing your best to help one another survive. The defining moment for me would come late September of 2015. I'd just gotten home from a double shift and I wanted to play the newest raid. So I joined up on a group of 5 and I could not have imagined what I walked into. I joined their group and was greeted with boisterous laughter, intoxicated chatter, and the thickest Southern accents I had ever heard. I joined and was immediately welcomed like never before. They introduced themselves to me one by one and gave me a little fact about themselves like it was speed dating. I took it as the alcohol talking, but I was enjoying every second. I was having so much fun with these guys. At the end of the night, we didn't even finish the raid, and I was okay with that. I had joined them because they said they knew what to do, so I expected the raid to be done fairly quickly. Their companionship, open hearts, and all-around humor had me in this euphoria of having found really good players who were just as equally friendly that I had in mind. I kept playing with them as the game evolved. Even when the game itself wasn't in the best place, we stayed in touch. Being the one that remained when they decided to come back and play, I was always there to help. My friendship in particular with 2 of them is what that has lasted for 5 years. And all of it culminated when in September of 2019, one of them was getting married and invited me as a guest of honor. I'd made a joke the night I met them that if he ever got married to this girl he had just started dating, I wanted a wedding invite, and he did not disappoint. This was also the first time we had met in person, and it was like nothing else. We finally got to enjoy each other's company while actually being in the same room. Everyone needs a place to call home, a place of serenity and peacefulness we can escape to, where all our problems fade away for just a few moments. And to me, that's Destiny. It's a place I can head to and clear my mind. Destiny has given me so much in a way that I never even thought was possible. It's my haven, and I look forward to what else it has to offer and the new people I meet along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really well done. I'm ready for our next speaker.
I can go. I can go.
So when you're ready, just take your time. When you're ready and you start your speech, then I'll time it.
Oh, is this good? Or
Yes, that's perfect.
okay. Have you ever let someone that you respect down? I know I have, and it was not an easy pill for me to swallow. I had to learn how to overcome the pressure that I put upon myself and come to terms with who I wanted to be because of the experience. I experienced excitement, pressure, motivation, sickness, and sadness, all because of a promise I made to my chemistry professor, Dr. Hansen. At the beginning of my fall 2018 semester at Napa Valley College, I decided to talk to Dr. Hansen as he was going to be my chemistry professor for that semester. I had taken the previous 2 chemistry courses with him, and I was able to receive A's in both. He brought that up and asked, "Are we going for the trifecta this semester or what?" Without hesitation, I responded, "I'm going to get that A no matter what. I promise I won't let you down, Hansen." He then said, "Yes, I expect nothing less from you, Angel." Walking out of his office that day, I didn't really put too much thought into what I just promised him. It wasn't until my drive home that I really thought about it. I had just told someone that I really respect and admire that I was going to get an A in his class. When thinking about that, I began to feel the pressure take over my mind and thoughts. I then reminded myself that I was able to get the A in his previous 2 chemistry courses. I was then filled with the emotion of excitement, the excitement in knowing that I was going to get an A and that Dr. Hansen would be proud of me. When going about the class, I knew that the material would be more difficult than the semester prior, but I didn't anticipate that it would be more challenging for me than I had originally thought. I ended up with a B on the first exam, and boy oh boy, did I begin to feel the pressure then. I knew I was going to have to work harder than before, and from there, this motivation to get the A and realize my promise to Dr. Hansen overtook me. I studied longer and smarter. I went to his office hours way more frequently. I did whatever was necessary to ensure that I would end that semester with that A. All of this ended up paying off through the next 2 exams. I was able to receive A's in both. Despite this, I still had to come the dreaded final exam. Despite knowing the material fairly well, I still found myself very anxious and stressed at the thought of letting Dr. Hansen down and not getting the A. so anxious and stressed to the point that I found myself dealing with the very painful migraine with an aura the day before my final. I'll save you all the gross details, but I was in no condition physically or mentally to study for a cumulative final exam. I've gotten migraines with auras in the past, and they usually occurred when I was very stressed. Because of experiencing them in the past, I knew I was going to be dealing with it for at least a couple of days. I felt defeated before I even took the final. I didn't want to make Dr. Hansen's life harder for having to accommodate me, especially on the last day of the semester. The next day, my brother drove me to school, and I took the final exam. My head was throbbing to the point where it got very painful whenever I even tried to think about a problem on the exam. Despite this, I powered through and tried my best. Walking out of the exam, I felt a tide of sadness. I knew I didn't do too terrible on the exam, but I knew I didn't get an A. I wasn't ready for the inevitable question my brother was going to ask me, "How'd you do?" So I rocked around for a bit and thought about the situation. Thinking about the situation made me think that I owed Dr. Hansen an explanation for the test he was inevitably going to grade. I didn't tell Hansen that I was dealing with a terrible migraine. I didn't want to sound like I was making excuses of trying to garner the A. I just told him that I was sorry for letting him down. Dr. Hansen then told me something that I'll never forget. He said, "An A doesn't define your worth as a student. You will find success." This was something that I knew deep down, but was something that I needed to hear from him. Hearing that from him made me reevaluate who I wanted to be and what I value as important. The substance and the value of an education is what's important. Even though I wasn't able to fulfill my promise to Dr. Hansen of getting the A, I now know my priorities as a student are. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. You did it, Angel. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we should be heading towards the end here. So who else do we still have? We have Anahi and Gabby, right? And Martha. Okay, I'm ready whenever you are. Whoever wants to be next.
I'll be next.
Okay.
Oh, is that okay, or is the light bothering?
That's fine. That'll work.
Do you remember the first time you met your best friend? I was 6 years old when my parents brought in my new furry friend in a small box wrapped in a green blanket. She was a small salt and pepper miniature schnauzer who we named Fluffy. She was my best friend throughout childhood and my early adulthood. She was there for me on my first day of elementary school, middle school, high school, and even for my first day at Napa Valley College. She was always there for me, and I was always there for her. However, we all know that as much as we want them to, our furry friends cannot always be with us forever. After Fluffy's passing, it took me a while to be okay with not having her around anymore. As months passed, I felt like there was something missing in my life. Of course, a part of me was feeling guilty for even thinking about getting another dog. But there was also another part of me that thought it would be nice to have a loving companion in my home again. After discussing the idea with my family, they also agreed it would be nice to give a dog a new home with us. One day on my way back from school, I visited the dog shelter in Napa. As I looked around all the kennels, listening to all the dogs barking so loudly, I noticed a small white, tan-colored haired dog. She was just sitting there looking at me, not making any noise or movement whatsoever. Her fur was long and tangled, and honestly, she looked really scared. The volunteer at the shelter told me that they found her abandoned at the park, and she had not made a single noise since she went to the shelter. When we met alone, she became more friendly. We played fetch, and she began to warm up to me. As I was playing with her, I realized that this was the dog for me. I was excited to take her home and show her where she would be living. We named her Mia, which means mine in Spanish. Once she was home, she slowly roamed around and would flinch and panic at any loud noise, whether it being a chair move or even the blender going off. She would even flinch when we were reaching to pet her. It saddened me to think that she was maybe being mistreated or neglected by her previous owners. It took several days for her to be comfortable and at ease around us. However, with our love and kindness, Mia began to feel like she finally had a family, and she belonged with us. She was even comfortable enough to let out a quiet bark. At this time, she would also get excited whenever someone would come home from school or work. She was now happily becoming a member of our family. It's been a year since we've adopted her, and she now barks at everything, whether it being to get our attention or when she chases the squirrels in our backyard. She doesn't flinch anymore when we reach to pet her. Instead, she rolls over because she loves a good belly rub. She loves to play fetch. She even loves to nap right next to me after I get home from school. She even knows a little bit of Spanish. She knows the word vámonos, which means let's go. When she hears this, she runs to her leash because she knows she's going out for a walk, and she loves her walks. Although I'll always be grateful for my first best friend, Fluffy, and I'll always remember all the good times we had, I am happy that I got the chance to give Mia a new home and a family she needs and deserves. Thank you.
Very nice job. Thank you. Okay. I'm ready for my next speaker.
I'll go next.
Okay.
Is this good?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. Music is one of the most universal languages in the world. From jazz to rock to orchestra, everyone listens to some type of music, right? My mother has told me stories of me having her in her belly and how I moved towards my brother when he sang to me. I listened to music whenever I was doing my chores, homework, playing video games, just about everything. Although I loved listening to music, I was also very interested in playing music my own. This brought me to join the concert band when I first entered middle school. From this point forward, I did not know that it'd be such an adventure from picking my instrument to play it and to continue with it for so many years that it has made a huge impact on my life. Picking my instrument is still one of the most memorable and funniest stories I love to tell. As I nervously try to find the band room, I walked in with what seemed at the time as a large crowd with dozens of eyes looking straight at me. Looking down, I walked to a place where I can sit quietly and wait as class begins. As it began, each of us was handed a piece of paper with a couple of questions, as well as asking us what instrument we wanted to play. We had 5 minutes to fill it out. I was stressed, not by the other questions, but by writing down the instrument I wanted. I knew I wanted to play the saxophone. I loved the sound and how it can be incorporated into different types of music. But there was one problem with my situation. I did not know how to spell saxophone. Being in this dilemma, my heart and mind was racing. How do I spell it again? Is it written with an A? As I look around the room, the teacher starts picking up the papers again. 5 minutes have passed. Too shy to talk to anyone, not being interested in playing drums, and not knowing that mayonnaise could be used as an instrument at that time, I decided to write down the instrument that was easier to spell. I wrote down the flute. As a week passed, I rented the instrument that I tied myself down to. It was quite an adventure picking it out, knowing that I did not set my heart on it. After getting my instrument, I began to learn to read music as well as play it. It took about 2 weeks for me to be able to make a notable sound on the flute. The trick was to blow like you were blowing into a bottle. As the years went by, I started to gain confidence in myself. I was able to challenge my fellow flutists for a better position. I was able to get from being the last flute to being in third chair, which made me able to get better, harder music and better myself even more. Quickly, middle school ended, and I went on to continue music in high school. Contrary to middle school, the marching band in high school was full of almost 100 students in the class. I will never forget the summers in which we all worked hard and practiced to be able to move as we played. We spent days in the 90-degree weather, outside sweating, and always needing to get water every 15 minutes. It was difficult to the point where I even thought about quitting when I first joined, but I'm glad I didn't and I pushed on. At the end of my first year, I switched to piccolo, which is a very small
and a very high-pitched version of the flute. It was a joke in the band that we put one of the quietest students with one of the loudest instruments. Then in my senior year, one of my friends and I were able to become co-section leaders for the flutes. As the new flutists came in, we began teaching them everything we knew, as well as giving them tips on moving while playing. The semester went by so quickly that it became our last game and show on the field. We played the national anthem before the game started, and we marched off, waiting for our last show to start. When the cheerleaders finished off their dance, we started our halftime show. Quickly moving from one position to the next while keeping our body facing one direction, we played with everything we got until it was over. In our final formation, we were all sweating as we finished the last song. Everyone in the stadium was clapping and cheering us on as we marched off to relax and enjoy the rest of the game. We sadly lost that match that day, but it was still enjoyable nonetheless. It is crazy to think that I went from not speaking to anyone for help to being able to lead a group of people. All of this happened because I could not spell saxophone. Did I regret writing down flute back in middle school? In a short answer, no. I have met so many new people that I would have not been able to meet or become friends with if I had chosen saxophone. Although in the beginning I did not like playing the flute, I quickly began to enjoy it and embrace it as my own now. Picking an instrument and enjoying the music that I can play with is an amazing feeling. Whenever I listen to a certain song, if there's a part I like, I can quickly find the music or figure out the notes and play the song myself. I also quickly learned how to spell saxophone. S-A-X-O-P-H-O-N-E. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, Martha. That was really awesome. You guys are all doing such a great job. Okay, so I think that leaves Gabby, is that right? Gabby, did you run away? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. I'm ready whenever you are. That's the right where you are is good?
Okay.
And you can start when you're ready. You can start whenever you're ready, Gabby.
Yeah. Imagine this. It's 11 p.m., you have a paper due in less than an hour, and you barely started writing it yesterday. Your adrenaline's running, you're questioning whether you can finish the paper on time, and you think to yourself, why? Why have I done this to myself? We have all been there at some point, either because life gets in the way or we procrastinate. For as long as I can remember, I have always procrastinated doing assignments, especially writing assignments. I have come to realize that it stems from the fear of failing, which is ironic because doing assignments last minute can possibly lead to a failing grade. In particular, the semester of spring 2020 was by far the worst I have ever procrastinated. And I went through a roller coaster of emotions trying to write 3 research papers in less than a month, learning some very valuable lessons at the end. This is the story of how procrastination ruined the entire month of May for me. The first day of spring semester, my political science teacher made clear that our research paper was due May 4th. We had 4 options to choose from, and it was our responsibility to keep ourselves accountable. I have plenty of time, I told myself, and I already knew what topic I wanted to research. The weeks turned into months, and I hadn't written a single thing. I have other important assignments to worry about, I justified to myself. I'll do it later. But then quarantine happened. The days mushed together, my work ethic flew out the window, and before I knew it, I had to complete 3 research papers during the month of May. 1 for political science, 1 for English, and 1 for humanities. What ensued was a month full of stress, anxiety, anger, fleeting motivation, and regret. When it comes to writing, I'm not bad at it. It just takes me forever, which is why I hate it. 2 weeks before my poli-sci paper was due, I created a plan. The first week was going to be pure research, just gathering all of my sources. The second week was going to be pure writing. The first week went by really quick, and I did a mediocre job at finding my sources. The second week came, and that's when the realization kicked in. I had a week to write a minimum of 5 pages. Not a big deal, but from past experiences, I knew that it was going to be a long, painful process. As the days flew by, my anxiety and stress began rising along with the anger I harbored towards myself. I had a semester to write this, and I'm barely starting now. Thoughts like, what if I don't finish on time? And what if I get a bad grade began to fill my head. If I didn't do the paper, I would fail the class. I had no choice. I had to just focus and do it. My friends who knew the predicament I was in were very supportive, and my best friend Martha was there to help me finish. It took me 2 days to produce 12 pages of writing, spending an ungodly amount of time on each section of my paper with desperation creeping in as the clock ticked closer to midnight. Less than 10 minutes left on the clock, I submitted my paper, and I was so happy that I was done. A weight was lifted off my chest, but I knew the battle wasn't over yet. In 10 days, I had another paper due for English, this time about the Australian wildfires. It was a group paper, 10 pages, and you would think after everything I went through, I would do my part ahead of time. I tried my best as I didn't want to be a burden on my group, and after doing an all-nighter, I actually succeeded at finishing my part way ahead of time. Unfortunately, a group member of mine did not do their part correctly, and their writing barely made any sense. As the research paper was worth 200 points, I couldn't turn it in as it was. Martha once again helped me finish the paper, and the same emotions and thoughts flooded my brain as 11:59 p.m. approached. It was a relief submitting the paper, but once again, freedom was still one paper away. My final paper for humanities was about artistic traditions and how they are passed down by women. It was an interesting topic filled with lots of information. Unfortunately, because I procrastinated, I had to omit some information in order to reach the time limit, 11:59 p.m. I was just as disappointed in myself as Martha was, and maybe some of you at me. I bought another ticket to go on the same emotional roller coaster, even though I absolutely hated it. Maybe it's because I hadn't failed yet. I mean, I got all A's on those papers. But my friends tell me that one day I won't be as lucky, and I'll turn in my paper late. There are two main things I learned from this experience. One is to just do the paper right away when it's assigned. Don't keep pushing it off, or else you'll suffer the consequences. The second is to have friends that support you and are there for you when you're having a breakdown. I am forever grateful for Martha doing me a solid, and she knows I would do the same for her if she was ever in a pinch. Moral of the story, don't procrastinate. Nothing good ever comes out of it, and the amount of stress produced from it is not healthy for your mind and body. Create a checklist. Set deadlines for yourself. Let your friends keep you in check. These are all things I do to help me manage my time wisely, and I know it's going to be hard to break this habit. For those of you who had gone through a similar situation like me, I know the battle's tough, but we can do this. And for those of you wondering, was this speech also finished at the last minute? The answer is, of course, I'm still learning my lesson.
That's wonderful. I knew that's where it was probably going. That you did it at the last minute. I've had students actually give a speech saying that procrastination is good. A persuasive speech on it. I'm not saying I agree. I don't. Okay, I do believe all of you have spoken. Yes, I haven't left anyone out. Okay, a couple last comments and then you're free to go. So I'm going to grade these right away, but I have to look at your manuscripts first because that's part of what's in the evaluation. So I have to look at that, and then I'll post your grade. And then what I found the easiest to do is to send everyone their. I send you a copy of your evaluation, but it's easiest to do it, believe it or not, in GroupMe. It's a very not straightforward to try to do it in Canvas in your grade. It's like 3 steps and then multiply that times all the speakers. So be looking is a private message. So be looking in GroupMe for a private message, okay? And that will be a picture of your evaluation. So you can read my comments, my advice, my compliments, that's mostly what you're gonna see. And do you have any last questions? Okay, just want to remind everyone that it's really important.
Can't hear you.
Okay. Okay, bro. Yeah, well, I'm gonna finish my sentence anyway. Is when we're an audience, we have to make sure we're looking, and then this is new for all of us, but when you're sitting in the classroom, my advice would always be to my audience to smile at the speaker and nod when they say something that you acknowledge. And you can still have all those mannerisms as an audience in Zoom. And so this is our first audience experience. So it gives me the opportunity just to give some advice to help the speaker. It's all for the speaker. It's all to help the speaker feel comfortable. You guys have any other comments before we say night-night?
Gabby's story screamed at my soul. Same thing yesterday. So
yeah. And Gabby, you were right. It's ironic what you said in the beginning of the speech is that procrastination is it's a result of fear of failure, right? I think you said that, and that's what keeps us from moving ahead. Another thing keeps us from moving ahead is just a blank screen. So like when you open up a document and you're getting ready and it's blank, that's another problem. So I have lots of advice on that, but we'll save that for another time. Thank you very, very much, everybody. You did a great job. And I guess the next time I see you will be our regular Monday night. I don't anticipate a Tuesday meeting next week. Okay, but I haven't dropped week 3 yet. I'm about to take a deep dive on that, okay? Okay. Bye, everyone.
I
But
Yeah.